Okay, so like, imagine this, right? You've poured your heart and soul into building a business. It's not just about the bottom line, though. It's about making a real difference. But, and here's the big question, what happens when you're ready to, step back?
Yeah.
How do you make sure it doesn't just, like, fade away? How do you make it a legacy?
It's something a lot of entrepreneurs, they don't even think about it until it might be too late. You get so caught up in the day-to-day, you know?
Exactly. And then you're left scrambling.
Right.
Right. Well, that's where, thankfully, the Xelantt profit strategists come in.
Yeah.
Their insights on building a lasting legacy have been, like, eye-opening.
They draw in some really insightful books, too. Like the Exit Strategy Playbook is a good one.
Oh, yeah, that one's a classic.
And Walking to Destiny. Have you had a chance to dig into that one yet?
Definitely. And what really struck me was how they emphasize, like, this isn't about a victory lap,
Yes.
legacy building. It's an ongoing thing.
Totally. They even compare it to tending a garden, which I thought was a really cool way to think about it.
Oh, I love that analogy. So it's not about, like, slapping your name on a building. It's more about planting those seeds that'll help your business keep growing, even when you're not there to, water it every day.
Exactly.
Okay, so we're planting seeds. But, like, what kind of seeds are we even talking about?
Well, it could be a lot of things, right? It could be investing in your team so they're ready to take the reins. Or it could be about building a brand so strong that it resonates with people, on a deeper level.
So it's about playing the long game.
Mm.
Making moves today that might not have a huge payoff right now, but will set your business up for, like, long-term success.
Exactly. And one of those early moves, according to Xelantt, should be a really well thought out exit strategy.
Which is not just about you, the founder, leaving, right? It's about the whole transition process.
Exactly. It's about making sure the business can thrive even without you at the helm.
They had that example of that family-owned business, right? The one that started planning their succession like a decade in advance.
Oh, yeah, the manufacturing company.
Yeah. That's incredible, right? Can you imagine having that kind of foresight?
It's huge. It lets you make smart decisions, not just like emotional ones, because you've got this clear plan for the future. And that actually leads to another important seed to plant, building a business that's inherently valuable, not just profitable.
And didn't they have a whole framework for that? Something about a value builder system.
Yeah. The value builder system, it's about looking at the aspects of your business that make it attractive to potential buyers or successors down the line.
So instead of chasing quick profits, we should be focused on building something with lasting value.
Exactly. Like, think of it like this. You're not just tidying up your house before guests come over. You're actually improving the curb appeal.
That's such a good way to put it. So how do you figure out that value, though? Like, what makes a business inherently valuable beyond just, like, the numbers?
Walking to Destiny, that book we were talking about earlier, they break down the value builder system into 11 actions. One of the big ones is customer diversification.
So, like, not putting all your eggs in one basket.
Exactly. They had this example of a software company that relied too heavily on just a few big clients. And then one of those clients backed out and it almost destroyed the business.
Ooh, yeah, that's rough.
Right. But if they had diversified, they wouldn't have been so vulnerable.
That makes total sense. Diversifying your client base is just smart business, right?
Exactly. And that idea of spreading your risk, it actually applies to a lot of aspects of building a lasting business, diversifying your products or services, your revenue streams.
So we're not just talking about surviving a crisis. We're talking about thriving in the long run.
Absolutely.
This is really making me rethink how I view legacy. It's not static, It's about building something dynamic that can, like, roll with the punches.
Exactly. And a big part of that is having a strong company culture.
Because at the end of the day, a business is just a group of people, right?
Totally. And they need to be guided by strong leadership. They use the analogy of a sports team.
Oh, I love sports analogies.
And how even the most talented team won't reach its full potential without a great coach.
So true. It's about having someone who can inspire them, push them, and help them grow.
Right. And they highlighted this tech startup that had a CEO who was known for being a really charismatic leader. They built a really strong company culture, one that encouraged open communication and continuous learning.
And that's what draws in the best talent, right?
Yeah.
People want to be part of something inspiring. But how do you actually create that kind of culture, though? Where do you even start?
One of the most impactful things, according to Xelantt, is investing in your team's development. like really nurturing their skills and talents.
It's like that saying, invest in your team and they'll invest in you. It
Exactly.
creates this amazing cycle of growth and success. When you have a team that's passionate, engaged, and ready for anything, that's how you build a legacy that lasts,
Right,
right?
absolutely. And to ensure that longevity, you need to think about diversifying your revenue streams too.
So again, not putting all our eggs in one basket.
Yeah. You got it. It's like having a balanced diet, right? If your business relies too heavily on one product or service and something happens, it's in trouble. But multiple revenue streams? That's like a safety net.
Okay, so how do we diversify? What does that look like in action?
Well, they had this great example of a fashion retailer. They started with just a physical store, but then they branched out.
Did they go online?
Yeah, they launched an online store. And get this, they started offering styling sessions and even created a subscription box.
Wow. That's thinking outside the box, or maybe inside a different kind of box, right? The subscription box.
Right. It's about finding those creative ways to expand your reach and tap into new markets.
I love how they took a traditional business model and found all these new avenues for growth. Really smart.
And it's something that any business can do no matter what industry you're in. The key is to be open to exploring those new possibilities.
Okay, so we've talked about exit strategies, building a strong team, diversifying revenue streams. It's a lot to juggle. But we can't forget about the financial side of things.
Right, because even the best intentions won't keep a business afloat if the finances are a mess.
They had a great analogy for this. They compared it to planning a family vacation. You wouldn't just, hop in the car and hope for the best, right?
Right. You'd map out your route, budget for gas and food, maybe even set aside some fun money.
Exactly.
And it's the same with your business. You need a solid financial foundation, especially if you're thinking long term.
So being mindful of cash flow, making sure you're not overspending, it's about being financially savvy,
Yeah.
just like you would be with your personal finances.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've covered a lot. We've talked about building a strong team, diversifying our offerings, getting our finances in order. What about the face of the company, though? The brand identity.
Ah, yes. That's where things get really interesting. Xelantt used this brilliant analogy. They compared it to that feeling you get when you walk into your favorite coffee shop.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
It's not just about the coffee itself, right? It's the whole experience. The aroma, the ambiance, the friendly barista who knows your order.
It's about creating a feeling, an emotional connection with your customers that goes beyond just the product you're selling.
Exactly. And that feeling, that connection, it needs to be consistent across the board. They described it as a well-coordinated orchestra with every element working together in harmony.
I love that.
Yeah.
So we're talking about everything from your logo and your website to the way you interact with customers on social media. It all needs to be singing from the same hymn sheet, so to speak.
Exactly. Consistency is key.
Speaking of key, Xelantt also had a whole section dedicated to technology,
And it's not just for tech companies.
which is so important to remember
Mm.
because sometimes it feels like we're constantly being bombarded with the latest and greatest tech gadgets, and it's easy to get overwhelmed.
I know, but they made this really important point. It's not about using every single new tool that comes out. It's about being strategic and using technology to enhance your business.
Oh, I love it when they break it down like that. So how do we do that? How do we figure out which tech is right for our business?
Well, they had these two analogies that I thought were really helpful.
Ooh, I love a good analogy. Hit me.
Okay, so the first one is about a chef using gadgets in the kitchen.
Okay, I'm already hungry.
A good chef, they don't need a fancy food processor to make a delicious meal, but having the right tools can definitely make things easier and more efficient.
It's about working smarter, not harder.
Yes.
And the other analogy they used was about a homeowner with a smart thermostat.
Yeah, like one of those fancy ones that learns your schedule and adjusts the temperature automatically.
Exactly. It makes your life easier, saves you money on your energy bill, and you don't need to be a tech expert to use it.
So it's about using technology to make our lives, or in this case, our businesses, run more smoothly. I can get behind that. But let's get back to the heart of it all. We've touched on company culture a bit, but Xelantt had a lot to say about creating a high-performance culture. What were your key takeaways from that?
Well, they used this sports analogy.
Another one. Love it. To illustrate how a high-performing team, like a championship sports team, has that shared drive and commitment to excellence. They celebrate each other's wins and learn from their losses.
It's like they're all working towards a common goal.
Exactly. And a huge part of building that kind of team comes down to leadership.
Because a team without a leader is like, well, I don't even know. It's just chaos.
Right. And Xelantt really emphasized the importance of establishing a leadership legacy. They used the analogy of a conductor leading an orchestra.
Ooh, I like this one already.
Each musician is incredibly talented on their own, right? But it's the conductor who brings everyone together, who guides them to create something truly beautiful and powerful.
So a leader's job is to not just manage, but to inspire, to help every single person in the organization reach their full potential.
Exactly. And to make sure that the company's values and vision continue on, even as the company grows and evolves.
So how do we do that? How do we build that kind of enduring leadership? What are the steps?
That, my friend, is a fantastic question. And it's something we're going to dive into in the next part of our deep dive.
So we left off talking about leadership, right?
Mm-hmm.
And how important it is for building a lasting legacy. But it can't just be about, like, one person at the top, right?
Exactly. That's what they call heroic leadership. And it's kind of outdated. It's not about one superstar CEO calling all the shots anymore.
It's more of a team effort.
Exactly. Remember that garden analogy? It's about creating a whole ecosystem of leaders within the company.
Oh, right, right. So instead of one lone gardener, we've got a whole team of people tending to the plants, helping them grow.
Exactly. And one of the best ways to do that is through mentorship. They gave this example of like a really experienced executive at this big company. I think they were a multinational corporation, actually. And this executive, they decided to start a mentorship program.
To, like, help younger employees develop their skills.
Exactly. Identify those up-and-comers and give them the support they need to become great leaders themselves.
It's like a leadership pipeline.
Exactly. And it's not just about, teaching them the technical stuff that's important, of course, but it's about more than that.
It's about those soft skills you hear so much about these days.
Yeah, things like how to be resilient, how to adapt to change, how to think strategically, the kind of stuff you can't really learn from a textbook.
It's about passing on the company culture, that leadership mindset, making it part of the company's DNA.
Exactly. It's about creating a legacy of leadership, one that's bigger than any one person. And speaking of bigger picture stuff, we have to talk about change.
Because in the business world, change is the only constant, right?
Tell me about it. And Xelantt, they emphasize just how important it is for leaders to be like adaptable and resilient, especially in times of uncertainty.
Because when things get tough, you can't just, like, bury your head in the sand.
Yeah.
You have to be able to pivot, make tough decisions.
Exactly. And they had this great analogy. They compared it to a ship captain navigating a storm.
Ooh, I like where this is going.
Right. The captain, they can't control the weather, but they can adjust the sails, steer the ship, keep the crew calm.
So it's about staying calm under pressure and making the best decisions you can with the information you have.
Right. It's not about having all the answers, but knowing how to find them, how to chart a course through the unknown. They gave the example of this manufacturing company. I can't remember what exactly they made, but anyway, they were hit hard when the economy took a downturn.
So what did they do?
Well, the CEO, instead of panicking, they focused on adapting. They streamlined their operations, found ways to be more efficient, even started looking at new product lines.
So instead of getting stuck in a reactive mode, they took control of the situation and found a way forward. That's great.
It's about thinking long-term and not getting caught up in the day-to-day chaos. And speaking of long-term thinking, innovation is key.
Because what worked 5 years ago, even 1 year ago, might not work today, right?
Exactly. Look at Microsoft. They totally revolutionized personal computing, but then they had to adapt when cloud computing became the next big thing. They could have just tried to hold on to their old way of doing things, but they didn't. They innovated.
It's about being willing to disrupt your own success, to challenge the status quo, to keep moving forward.
100%. Building a legacy isn't about clinging to the past. It's about shaping the future. And sometimes that means taking risks.
Calculated risks, of course.
Oh, of course, of course. But you have to be willing to step outside your comfort zone. You have to create a company culture where it's okay to experiment, to try new things, even if they don't always work out.
Because sometimes those failures are just stepping stones to something even better.
Exactly. It's all part of the journey. But here's the thing. It's not just about what you build. It's about why you build it. Why does any of this matter? Why do we care about building something that lasts?
That's a great question. It's about making a difference, right? Like leaving the world a better place than you found it.
Exactly. It could be anything, really. Creating jobs, supporting your community, pushing your industry forward in a positive way. It's about connecting with something larger than yourself.
And that brings us back to what Xelantt was saying. It's not enough to just, like, dream about building a legacy.
Yeah.
You have to actually do the work.
Right. It takes action. They made this really good point. Transforming a company into a legacy, it takes planning. You can't just wing it.
It's like anything worthwhile, right?
Yeah.
It takes time, effort, dedication.
It's a marathon, not a sprint. It all starts with that first step.
And that's what we'll uncover in the final part.
Yeah.
We've covered so much ground in this deep dive. Exit strategies, team building, company culture, technology. It's a lot, right?
It is. It's easy to get bogged down in the details.
Totally. So what's the one thing our listeners should focus on? Like, if they could only do one thing right now to start building their legacy, what would it be?
Goes back to that garden analogy.
Ah, the garden. Love it.
Think about it this way. If your business was a garden, what would you plant today to make sure it's still thriving years from now?
Wow. Okay, that's a powerful image. So we're talking about those foundational elements that will set our businesses up for long-term success.
Exactly. And it's going to be different for every business, right?
Of course, of course.
Maybe it's finally defining your core values, like really figuring out what your company stands for.
Yeah, that's huge.
Or maybe it's starting that mentorship program we were talking about, investing in the next generation of leaders.
Or even just like looking into a new technology that could help you be more efficient. Anything that lays the groundwork for a stronger future.
Exactly. It doesn't have to be this huge, overwhelming thing. Just start with one step.
Because it's all about taking action.
Right.
It's not enough to just think about building a legacy. We have to actually make it happen.
100%. And it starts with asking yourself that question. What do I want my company to represent? Not just today, but in the years to come.
It's about playing the long game, like we were talking about before. Thinking bigger, being bolder, and, most importantly, taking action.
It's a journey, but it's one worth taking.
Absolutely. Well, that wraps up our deep dive for today. Hopefully you're feeling inspired and ready to start building your own legacy.
And remember, it's not about being perfect. It's about taking those first steps and never stopping learning and growing.
Couldn't agree more. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, everyone. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep aiming for greatness.